Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and this is the Porsche 911 GTS Cabriolet. There's really not much to say about the 911 that you guys don't already know. I mean, it is an icon, an iconic sports car, and one that you can use every day. But the thing is, if I review this GTS, well, I'm only kind of getting a sample of what the 911 is all about, because there is a 911 for everyone out there. There's everything from the base Carrera all the way to the mad track-focused GT3 and GT3 RS. So what I'm going to say is just sit back, relax, and let me take you through the 911 GTS Cabriolet, because this is a car I've been looking forward to for years. Now, one of the joys of buying a Porsche, or possibly one of the curses, is that there are a huge amount of optional extras available, and you can truly customize your particular Porsche. Now, this particular GTS has got around £13,000 worth of optional extras, and you're probably thinking there are quite a few of them fitted to the exterior of this car. But as standard on the GTS, you do get a black pack fitted to the car, and it's free of charge. So you've got the black pack effect here at the front, around the headlight surrounds, and you even get black name badging at the rear, and that's usually an optional extra. We've also got these gorgeous black alloy wheels fitted straight from the turbo, and we've got 20 inches at the front and 21 inches at the back. In fact, the only optional extras that are fitted to the exterior of this particular GTS is the GT Silver metallic paint, the gloss black brake calipers, which, believe it or not, are an optional extra, and also there are tiny little cameras fitted as well, so we have got a 360-degree view around the car. But other than that, on the exterior, it is actually pretty standard. So that means that the rest of the options have been fitted to the interior. And on that note, I think it's time we have a little look on the inside of this GTS. Sat in the front of the 911, you are greeted by a beautifully crafted interior and a very comfortable place to be. It does feel pretty special in here. Now, of course, this being a sporty cabriolet, getting in and out of this GTS is a bit tricky when the roof is up. I mean, if you've got a belly like me, you've got to kind of suck it in a little bit, but when the roof is down, it's an absolute doddle. And then once you're sat in these driver's seat and front passenger seat, you find that they do hold you in place, and even a big bear like me in place. But if you are a little bit larger than myself, you might find that they are pinching your kidneys a little bit, but it's not uncomfortable. Now, also on this particular car, I have got the 18-way adjustable seats. And there is something as too much choice, because every time I have a fiddle with the buttons, it just changes an aspect of the seating position and the comfort, and I just find another brilliant, comfortable position to sit in. Also, with the steering, it has got electric adjustment as well. You've got both reach and rake adjustment, so getting the perfect driving position is actually achievable. Also, another thing I really love is the fact you can get yourself really nice and low here in the Cabriolet, so it does feel like a proper sporty driving position. Interior quality in here is absolutely brilliant. We've got leather and soft touch plastics on top of the dash, on top of the doors. We've even got Alcantara here on the door panels, and also on the bottom section here of the dashboard. We've also got a matte carbon pack fitted to this car, and you can see it here on the dash, here just around the cup holders, and also are on the doors. The only thing that's a little bit disappointing in here is actually we've got piano black plastic here on the center console, and you can already see fingerprints and smudging, and there was a moment where actually it rained a little bit, so I have got some water spots and marks here as well. So I would love to see there's be an option where you can change this piano black plastic. I mean, the quality of itself is actually really lovely, but it is going to be prone to fingerprints, smudges, and also a few scratches, so that's just something to be aware of. But everything else here in the 911 GTS is absolutely spot on, and really just feels like a lovely special place to be. Now, cubby spaces here in the GTS are actually not too bad. So we've got two door pockets here in the door. However, you can't get any bottles of drink in there, but you could perhaps get your keys or a wallet in there, with one little area up here where the speaker is, but there is another little cubby space underneath the door handle, and both are lined with fabric. Now here on the center console we have got a cup holder here, and it feels really well engineered, and if you put a coffee cup in place, it's not going anywhere. It is held really tightly. Then underneath the center armrest we have got a little bit of extra cubby space where you can put your mobile phone. We have got two USB-C charging inputs, and we have got things such as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and we have got wireless CarPlay as well. Then we have got the glove box, which is actually of a decent size. It is lined with fabric, so loose items won't rattle around in there. And the book pack and an extra cup holder in there actually don't take up too much space, which is really handy. That is actually a really nice, decent size. And then finally we have got another cup holder which is integrated into the dashboard, kind of like what it was like on the Cayman I had a few years ago. And that is really handy because to begin with you kind of panic because you've only got one cup holder in here and your passenger will have to end up holding his drink. But nope, he has got his own dedicated cup holder, so that's really handy. Now I will mention that there is no boot on this 911. In fact, that's where the engine is. And what I would say is that the rear seats are almost to the point of useless. They're absolutely fine for children. You can affix a child seat because you have got ISOFIX support back there. However, I would actually recommend that being an additional storage space, because also the back seats are very upright in there in order to accommodate the roof. So even if you did manage to get adults back there, or well, kids that are perhaps a little bit thin and lanky, they're not going to be the most comfortable back there. Now, speaking of ISOFIX, you've also got ISOFIX support here on the front passenger seat. So if you do want to have your child up front with you, you can do, which is really handy. Now, one surprise is that there's actually not a huge amount of buttons here on the interior of the 911. But where we have got buttons, they do feel just of a wonderful quality and really well damped. We got some buttons here on the center dashboard. So as you can see here, we got like a specialist button. We have got what looks to be the barrel of a twin barrel shotgun, but it's actually your exhaust. You've got your hazard light, traction control, and adjust the suspension on there. But I just love the knurling and the feel, and they just feel really lovely and well damped. Again, you can just feel all the kind of quality here in the 911. And then when we get to the center console, we have got a couple of rotary knobs for the volume and changing the radio station, and then a couple of buttons on the center part there for your dual zone climate control, where you can adjust the temperature and the fan speed. Now when the car is turned on, we have got a few extra buttons up here as well, and they do provide a little bit of haptic feedback. But it also presents a bit of an ergonomic problem. You see, we've got two extra buttons here above these rotary knobs, and they can be a little bit fiddly to get to when you're kind of on the move. So that's something I'd like Porsche perhaps to look at a little bit when doing the redesign or the facelift of the 911, which will be due out later this year or early 2023. And then further back, we have got a couple of dedicated controls. This is going to be for the roof, getting it up and down, and also for the wind deflector. And then we have a couple of buttons as well for the front heated seats. And then finally, we have got your electric handbrake as well. But the auto hold is actually something you have to go through the menus with, which can be a little bit tricky, again, especially whilst you're on the move. Then on the steering wheel, we have got a couple of buttons here, and they're nice and easy to use, especially again whilst you're driving. On the left hand side, they kind of deal with the media side of the controls, and on the right hand side we have got your driver data display and controls, which again are very handy. And then finally we got a couple of buttons on the right hand side, and they operate the light switch and also the ignition toggle switch. So yeah, when it comes to the interior buttons, there's actually not many in here, but I've been really lacking too many buttons to press, apart from things like I said, like the auto hold and also the engine start stop button. You have to go through a couple of menus here on the infotainment screen. Then finally, in front of the steering wheel, we have got a nice little mixture of analog and digital displays. So we have got a massive rev counter here in the center of the dashboard, which is really lovely to look at. And we have got a crayon surround there, which is an optional extra. And it's just a really lovely thing to watch, especially as you're going through the gears and perhaps, you know, giving the engine a bit of a testing. And it is flanked then by two 7-inch digital displays, and they do kind of come up and look like analog displays. Now, this is the first time where I have actually found the steering wheel does block the two outer displays. Now on the left hand side we have your time and temperature, Okay, I'm not really too bothered about that. And by temperature, I mean exterior temperature. And on the right-hand side, we have got your fuel gauge and engine temperature. Now, that is something I would like to see and be able to see, but you have to kind of move yourself around in order to see it. But you do get to see your speedometer, you do see your rev counter, and your little kind of driver data display in the middle. And you can change that by using the right-hand controls on the steering wheel. And what I like as well is that you can go from one side to the other, just pressing this little button here. So it does mean that there are lots of optionals to look at when it comes to, you know, what you want to see. So I really do like that feature. And you can actually have on the right hand side the sat nav on display, which again is actually a really nice feature, kind of, you know, not unlike a Volkswagen product. But again, because of the steering wheel being in the way, you're only going to see half of that image. So that's just something to be aware of. But all in all, being sat here in the 911, I mean, it's just a wonderful place to be. It's very comfortable, beautifully screwed together, and I love all the little feel and kind of knurling on all the buttons and everything. Even the paddles behind the steering wheel, oh, just feels so nice to just kind of use and go through the motions with. But yeah, sat here in the front of the 911, it's a really lovely place. Now, I've already spoken about the rear seats, or lack thereof, so I think it's actually time we have a little look at the front. Now, when it comes to getting the front open on your 911, you can either use the key fob or a button on the driver's door sill. And when you get the front open, you're greeted with 132 litres, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on a car like this, it is very handy and useful, and I do love the shape of it. Now, we have seen presenters in the past kind of jump in and show how big the boot is on the 911, but yeah, they're going to need two trunks for me. But it is actually a really nice shape. You can easily get a few weekend bags in there, or perhaps a mid-sized suitcase. But we've also got a warning triangle here as well, and also fitted to this car, a tyre puncture repair kit, which is actually really handy. Of course, you're not going to be able to get a fitted spare wheel in the front of your 911. But yeah, in terms of other features as well, I mean, yes, it doesn't have a 12-volt socket or any tethering hooks, but I've put items in here and they've not been rolling around, which is actually really good. But the other thing I love as well is that it is all lined with fabric, so yeah, you're not going to hear any rattling around. But I really do like it. It is actually very useful and very handy, and it is actually a standout feature on the 911, of course, because there is an engine right at the back of the car. But yeah, I think on that note, it's time we take this 911 GTS for a drive. So once you get driving in the 911 GTS, first impressions are very positive. I mean, you can tell when you start driving the 911, it feels like a sports car. It feels like it's been developed to handle brilliantly on the road and on the track. Now, of course, I got that lovely low driving position, but visibility for the most part is pretty good. Now, with the roof up, I got a great view of the road ahead. However, the A-pillars are pretty thick, and only on a couple of occasions have I found myself looking around them at any junctions. The wing mirrors are of a decent size, and they do help with any kind of blind spots viewing. However, I've not got blind spot monitoring on this particular car. Now, with the roof up, however, if I look over my shoulder, you do find that there is a massive C-pillar there, of course, because of the roof, and also rear visibility is quite tight as well. Of course, it's not going to have a large rear screen. But with the roof down, I've got no issues with visibility whatsoever. So, first impressions then, when you start driving the 911, it feels really lovely. It feels like a proper sports car. It's a bit firm, but it's not uncomfortable. And you just know that there's an absolute masterclass of engineering underneath, just waiting to be unleashed. Now, when it comes to trim levels in the 911 range, quite simply, there are a lot of them. In fact, there are probably more 911s available to choose from than there are Indian meals on a menu. And sticking with that Indian food comparison, that's not a bad thing, because that means that there is a 911 perfect for you. And not only that, you don't have to have the same 911 or meal as everyone else. This is the thing about Porsches, is that you can customize them and add so many optional extras that really no two 911s or no two Porsches could really be identical, because you can tailor the car to how you want it. You can really personalize it and make it your own. So kind of going back to the Indian menu thing, you know, someone might want to go for just a chicken korma. They just want a 911, nice and simple, entry level Carrera, and they're happy. You then got somebody who wants a Vindaloo. They want to take their 911 to the track, so they go grab themselves a GT3 or a GT3 RS. But then they can kind of go into the menu and they can see all the extra herbs and spices that you can add to it, and that's all the customization, that's all the optional extras that you can have added to your Porsche. Every Porsche I've had from Porsche UK to review has had at least £10,000 worth of optional extras on there, which means that really you're not going to find another Porsche with the same extras on there. So what I've got here is the GTS, so it's right in the middle of that range, and it's kind of the perfect blend of road going performance as well as having a little bit of a track focus to it. Now the GTS first came out in the 60s, and that's where those three little letters came out for the first time, and that was actually on a mid-engine two-seater that Porsche brought out, but it didn't last very long. However, the name has, and you can now go and grab yourself pretty much every Porsche in the lineup and get yourself a GTS version, including the Taycan. So that actually shows that even their electric car, they're finding that perfect blend of road-going manners with a hint of track focusness with it, even though that is an electric saloon. But with the GTS, yeah, you get kind of the best of both worlds. As I said, it's great on the road, and I'm sure this will be brilliant on the track, and I'd love the day to take one of these to the track, have a driver with me, you know, show me how it's done, or actually teach me if anything. That could be an idea actually for Also Bears, but we shall see. But that's the thing with the GTS, it is kind of the ultimate fun version of the 911. If you want to go for the absolute mad version, then go for the GT3, GT3 RS. The fastest, you go for the turbo. Or if you just want a 911, if you just want to have a Porsche on the drive, grab yourself a Carrera. It's brilliant. You can just get so many versions of the 911 and so many variations to it. It can be probably quite difficult to pick the perfect car for you because you've got so much choice. So when it comes to engines in this GTS, it's a familiar one. It's a 3-litre flat 6 twin turbocharged petrol engine, producing a sprightly 480 brake horsepower and 570 Newton meters of torque, which means that this rear-wheel drive cabriolet will get from 0 to 62 miles an hour in 3.6 seconds, which is absolutely astonishing. And it will go on to a top speed of 192 miles per hour, but I'm not really going to experience that on UK roads. But it's a lovely engine, it's a lovely engine note to have. You can hear the engine when you start driving behind you, of course it will be, it's a classic Porsche. But it's got a lot of life in it. Yes, in a world of particulate filters and kind of lowering down the kind of noise that comes out the back, it still has that bit of fizz there. It still has that soul to it, which is absolutely brilliant. And considering it's a German car as well, and you know, Germans are one for engineering and making sure things are absolutely perfect, it just has, well, you're gonna have to experience it for yourselves. Sorry, I just went a little bit over 60 there, but it's beautiful, it's glorious. It revs to 7,500 RPM, and it's just really lovely. And when it's mated to this 8-speed PDK, it's an absolute joy. However, I would love to experience the manual gearbox, the 7-speed manual, because I've heard so many positive things about the manual gearboxes as well. But the PDK, I've experienced it before in the Macan and also the Cayman T I had a few years ago, and I just love the fact it's just so responsive. It's one of the best automatic gearboxes I've ever come across, and I love the paddles as well on the back of the steering wheel. It feels just really lovely to use. It's proper metal as well. It's none of this plastic nonsense you get from other Volkswagen Group cars. However, I can't see Porsche wanting to share these paddles with anyone else. But yeah, the engine in combination with that gearbox, it just makes for a brilliant 911. But here comes the boring bit, but it's actually a bit of an interesting one as well, and that's fuel economy. Because Porsche say, I'll just turn that engine note off. Porsche say I should get around 25 mpg with this GTS, but driving it back from Reading up to Lincolnshire, I averaged over 33 mpg, and I'm really impressed by that. I actually think with that, you've got yourself a brilliant GT car as well, because to get that kind of fuel economy, but with that performance as well, it's just staggering. And I was trying my best to kind of get it up to that magical 35 mpg. Couldn't quite get there. However, over 33, I'm really impressed with. That's more than what Porsche claims. So yeah, this is a brilliant long distance cruiser, as well as being an amazing everyday sports car. That's a cracking engine behind me. So what's the ride, refinement and handling like in this GTS? Well, ride-wise, I have been really impressed by it. I mean, I knew it was going to be quite firm, it was going to be very focused to being a sports car, but it's very comfortable at the same time. Don't forget, I've got 20-inch alloy wheels at the front, 21s at the back, so I was expecting a bit of a firm, bumpy ride because of the type of car it is. Now, at low speed, yes, you can feel some of the booms and imperfections from potholes and manhole covers, but it deals with them much better than I was expecting them to. And then as you get faster, the car becomes a bit more planted. Yes, you can feel me and see me kind of shuffling around in the driver's seat, but I'm not uncomfortable. The seat is holding me in place and I feel very comfortable. I can very easily do a long drive in the 911 and come out the other end feeling nice and relaxed and not a big puddle of sweat. And in fact, I did do a 4-hour journey in the 911 to get home, and I was absolutely fine at the end of that journey. This is a brilliant, as I've already said, long-range cruiser. Of course, you can hit the little suspension button, you can firm it up, you can go through the various drive modes, and that does firm up the suspension, but you really only want to use that if you are going to take the 911 down to a track day, because you can really then focus on the handling and what you're doing at a track and not on a public highway. Just keep it in normal, or possibly in sport, and you should be absolutely fine. But Sport Plus, I would just reserve that for a track day. Now, when it comes to the refinement side, again, I've been very impressed by it. Now, of course, if you take the roof off, you're going to get air coming in to the cabin, and it can get a little bit blowy, but what I love is that there is actually a wind deflector built in to the rear seats, or the frame of the rear seats, and that does take a huge amount of the blusteriness coming into the cabin. And again, it makes for a really great cruiser, even with the roof off. Now, with the roof up, I mean, I've got a little bit of road noise coming into the cabin, tiny bit of wind noise as well, and if I put my foot down, I can hear the engine behind me. But again, on a long cruise, absolutely fine. But if you want to hear the engine, if you want to impress your passenger, then by all means you can do that, and you just get that noise from the engine coming into the cabin, that glorious 3 litre. So what's the handling like in the 911? Well, it's glorious. That's the simplest way to put it. The feeling of the steering wheel, firstly in your hand, is really lovely. It's the perfect size, but not only that, when you get turning, you can feel everything the front wheels are doing. And don't forget, this is electrically assisted steering, it's not hydraulic, and yet you can feel weight as you're turning. You can feel the weight of the car, which is just mind-boggling to say the least. I mean, it's even more impressive in something like the Taycan, because that's a fully electric car. I mean, they have to program the steering in order to kind of give it that feel. But here in the 911, it just, yeah, it's just like the Taycan. It just feels absolutely wonderful. It feels natural as well. You just feel just completely connected to the road. You feel connected to the car as well. And you just get this feeling of, yeah, this is the brilliant, ultimate, everyday sports car, where you can just drive it around and it will just reward you. You take it to a track and it will reward you more. The other thing I will mention as well is that this particular car has got rear wheel steering, which means at low speed, it's an absolute joy. It just whizzes around the little villages and urban areas that I've been driving around. When it comes to parking, it's an absolute doddle, and if you need to do a U-turn, it almost turns on a sixpence because of that rear wheel steering. So at low speed, if I'm turning to the right, the wheels will turn to the left to make it tighter turning circle. And then when you go faster, when you turn to the right again, just using right as an example, the wheels at the rear will turn to the right as well to just help you shift across when you're changing lanes perhaps on the motorway. Of course, it will give you some extra performance and handling if you're on a track. But I am absolutely loving everything about the 911. I mean, I've driven a coupe version. It was about 3 years ago. Thank you, Porsche UK. But yeah, driving it on the public highway, having the roof down as well. Obviously, I've not got it down just yet because that's going to be my next section. But you've just got an absolutely brilliant cabriolet. It's just great for summer days. And I'd probably say if you're going to go to the track, maybe the coupe would probably be a bit more, I don't know, a bit more focused, perhaps because of the fact of it'll have a roof as well, so it'll feel a little bit stiffer as well. But still, the cabriolet on the roads is absolutely glorious. Now, of course, this being a cabriolet means that I can drop the roof down. Now, it's not like a Mazda MX-5 where you have to kind of do a couple of clips and throw it back using your hands. Oh no. You can do this at speeds of up to 31 miles an hour, and it takes just 12 seconds for that roof to lower, close, and be completed. That is hugely impressive. And what I love as well, as I've already mentioned, you have got a wind deflector, and if I put them up now, as you can see, there you go, or as Porsche call it, the wind stop. But that's it. I'm ready now for some distance driving with the roof down, and as I accelerate, I've got no wind hitting my head. The top of my scalp, which is very much exposed, I'm not getting any wind on it. The only thing I'm getting is a little bit of wind here on the center armrest, but that's about it. This is great. Driving this back from Reading, from Porsche, it felt so lovely. No wind in my hair, obviously, because I haven't got any hair, but I couldn't feel the wind on my scalp. It felt lovely and relaxed, surprisingly refined as well. Yes, you could hear the wind, but you couldn't feel it. You could hear it all going into that deflector. And again, that just means you've got a brilliant GT car. You've got your partner by your side. She can have herself a silk scarf or something and it'll be fluttering in the wind. Oh, you absolutely love it. But also, you whack on that sports exhaust, put it into manual, drop it down a couple of pegs. And you've got so many oral sensations hitting you. The sound of that engine, the sound of the wind, the feeling of the heat of the sun on my face. Oh, the achiness of the smile because of my cheeks. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. But here's the other thing as well. This is the UK. This is summertime in the UK, which means as I look ahead of me, there's a lot of clouds there. So I could have to put the roof down. However, I have got somebody behind me, so we might have to save that for a little section where I put the roof up a bit further on. So with my time in the 911 GTS, what have been some of the highlights and some of the low points I've experienced with the car? Well, highlights have been just the car itself. It looks amazing. It's such an iconic shape. it drives wonderfully, and for the GTS, when it comes to standard kit, I was actually really impressed by it. There's a lot of things on this car that would be optional extras. Now, speaking of optional extras, I would love to see something happen with the interior, especially something where you can cover this center console with the piano black plastic. Perhaps with this matte carbon pack, just extend it here onto that center console. Because I just find black piano plastic, it looks very classy, everyone's doing it, but even though the quality is wonderful, it's prone to smudges, it's prone to scratches, and it just takes away some of that kind of glossiness of the interior of the 911. Also, as I mentioned, some of the ergonomics around where the little rotary dials are, where the switches are behind them. Yes, I love the haptic feedback, but they can be a little bit tricky to reach, especially for the driver when on the move. And then the final niggle I've come across, and I don't think I would experience this in the coupe, is the fact of when the roof is up, I have experienced a tiny rattle or something that's possibly coming from the roof mechanism. But it was actually a very minor quibble, because as soon as I got that Bose sound system working, and you know, working in full song I should be saying, it was fine, it completely disappeared. But that was just something to be aware of if you are looking at the Cabriolet, because you are going to have quite a few moving parts back there. So yes, they would be prone to perhaps a squeak or a rattle, because you've also got those sections and that fabric roof. So again, just something to be aware of. But other than that, no, I've been massively impressed with the 911. You can just tell within 50 yards of driving it how special it really is, and how much of an amazing sports car it truly is as well. So everyone, what are my thoughts on the Porsche 911 GTS Cabriolet? Well, I've been hugely impressed by it. I absolutely love it, and it truly is the everyday sports car. And that's the great thing as well with the 911. There are so many variations to choose from. There is a 911 for everyone out there. Now, me personally, I probably wouldn't go for the Cabriolet. I would probably go for the coupe. But the fact is, you have the choice to do so. You can go for a coupe, you can go for a Cabriolet, you can go for a Targa as well. There's just so many choices, but it all comes from a heritage. It all comes from a sporting background. You're not just buying the drop-top version of a 911, you're buying the Cabriolet. You're buying just another special version of the 911. It still handles brilliantly. Yes, it is a little bit stiffer than the coupe in the main body in order to stop any kind of scuttle shake or flex, but I've not had any issues with that whatsoever driving it. This feels very close to the coupe. But again, you just got to take that little bit of compromise. You lose a little bit of structural integrity. You gain a little bit of extra weight as well. So these are things you just got to be aware of if you're looking at the Cabriolet. But on the flip side, if you have no intention of taking it to the track and you want a really lovely GT car where you can drop the roof and just feel the sun on your face, you can't go wrong. If you're thinking about buying a 911, you've already bought it. You'll never be disappointed with it. It's just a perfect everyday sports car. And there's a 911 for everyone out there. That's what I love. So yeah, the Porsche 911 is a brilliant sports car. The GTS Cabriolet is a brilliant cabriolet. It looks great, it drives great, and of course, it sounds great as well. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Porsche 911 GTS Cabriolet. Of course, don't forget to like, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. If you've got any questions about the 911 and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. And also don't forget to follow on social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. because you get to catch up with other cars that I drive or that I might actually experience. For example, the week or the day I was picking up the 911, or the day before I should say, I spotted the new Noble M500 prototype. You wouldn't see that if you're not following me on social media. So that's another excuse and another reason to follow me there as well. But guys, in the meantime, have a great day, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you all in the next video. So take care everyone, and bye-bye.